on today's episode of Scale or Fail, we're talking about Tavely. And so, Dimitris, this was kind of your pick. You gave me three options, and I said, let's do this one. Why don't you kick us off and tell us what they do?
So I think it's this critical infrastructure provider. It picks and shovels play for all the AI agents and AI agents economy, quite frankly. So the way I think about this is just any of these LLMs is really facing with a real problem like hallucination, and solutions like Tavily is solving for hallucination, right? It mitigates the risk of hallucinating and provide, fact checking on the back end on a lot of that stuff. So I think it's pretty fundamental when you think about the LLM infrastructure and how the information is delivered to the users.
Yeah, and what was interesting in researching it is like we are now, it's crazy how quickly AI is moving, but not like a year ago, not all AI systems were connected to the web. And so they help provide that architecture as well of like, okay, you want to actually pull in data here, but then they add guardrails around this. I asked AI to give me like a real life example of what they could help do. And so what the example it gave me was, one of the things that companies and legal teams struggle with is keeping up with GDPR in the EU. And so instead of having to like go and figure out everything that's changed with those policies, they can help you create two agents that will go and say, okay, retrieve me all the latest rulings and regulatory updates, look at the EU data protection websites, and then have a legal assistant agent that goes and analyzes that and provides an analysis. So instead of spending multiple weeks and a lot of legal hours and money doing that, they do it a lot quicker. The thing that I think, Tavali is really leaning in on is that they do 0 data retention. So, they're not keeping that data somewhere. It's not getting stored externally, and they are very highly compliant. And so I think this is for enterprise companies, they're like, "Okay, this is what you can go search, and this is how the data needs to be stored so that we are in compliance with everything we need." And of course, you picked a company that is all about compliancy because you love compliancy.
I like it. I think it brings a lot of transparency in a business, right? Compliance is designed just for that, and also ensuring that the users are protected, right? And I'm not saying compliance is always implemented with the good faith, but I think in general, when you have a transparent business, it's better for your business.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think this is, like, so there I gave a legal example, you could do this with financial services, like fraud detection or regulatory compliance or real-time market updates. Healthcare is a big one, obviously, and even tech companies, like, if you're doing research and development, what's the patent landscape, and what does that look like? If your customers or prospects' data, are you being compliant with going and looking that data up for your salespeople? So, lots of use cases here. Tell me about what this round was. What they raise?
I would need to look at into. I
Oh,
don't
I can
have
tell
it.
you.
I don't have
I'm
it
on it.
handy. All
I'm on
right,
it.
I
It was a
see
$20 million round. I believe it was actually in August.
20 or 25.
20. They
Okay,
already raised 5 from,
okay.
Alpha Ventures? Now I'm
Alpha
blanking
Wave
on the
Global and the
Al
Inside Partners. Yep.
Alpha Wave Global. They raised 5 million, I believe, back in 2024, and then for this round, it was Alpha and Insight Partners.
Okay.
And Alpha actually incubated them for a year, and so there's, like, an interesting dynamic with the founders. So, you have kind of, like, the tech founder, CEO and one of the co-founders, Columbia University grad. Previous, exit he was not a CEO or co-founder of this company, but, Talania was acquired by, Paycor, AI-driven recruitment platform. Then he went and created, GPT Researcher, which was an open source project that he co-founded, basically connected ChatGPT to the web. That was before ChatGPT went and did that or
Yep.
OpenAI did that themselves, and then started this. Then you have, The second co-founder, Asev, who is currently the head of AI at Monday.com. So he is maintaining that role, and also the co-founder here, he was previously at Wix and was the head of research and development. He also co-founded Tiv AI, which was an AI-powered chatbot. And he's raised money for a few of these companies, also holds some patents for RAG conversational agents. So not a dumb guy. And then the last co-founder, which is the the interesting one, is he actually is part of Alpha Wave Global. So during this incubation period, he came on as the managing director. He has an investment banking background, but during that, he really helped lead this round, so the Series A round, and will continue to be involved. So you have someone who's part of the initial and current investment round, also part of the founding team. What do you think about that? Have you seen that happen before?
No.
Yeah, it's
I've seen the
unique.
transitions from with the individuals that actually were working on the venture capital and then they,
Yeah, they go
join.
into the
Yeah,
company.
because
Yeah.
the company's growing and it has attraction, so they need more people, but never as a founder.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I'm sure he was very helpful in leading this round. Alpha Wave Global, I think, brings like the international lens to it. So this is out of their Abu Dhabi office that they're doing this Middle East expansion. They've invested in like SpaceX, Uber, Lyft, Monzo, Klarna, Alibaba, and then Insight Partners, someone that you and I are very familiar with in the tech world, is does a lot in data companies. We were just talking about weights and biases before this episode, Databricks, Census, and a lot of like kind of traditional tech companies as well. They actually do a lot of investments in the partnership space, but they've already invested over 4 billion in AI in data companies. So strong investor support, not a ton of investors, but I think like a good round to help them scale. They're mostly doing a lot of product-led growth, so I'm assuming a lot of this will be like support on infrastructure, and engineering. Any other thoughts in terms of like the investors themselves or the founders?
I think the investors is always worth to notice because it tells you how hungry they are for a success of this company that they're funding. Especially these days, there's a ongoing conversation on the New York Stock Exchange and Wall Street about the bubble. So I think we're gonna soon start seeing the kind of questions around like, okay, is this really something I need to have? If is this something that is this an AI I want to have in my portfolio? Is this defendable? I think there's a lot of these conversations will happen. So honestly, having someone in a group of co-founders that knows the game, how to play it, how to position this, is helpful. You mentioned about the PLG approach. I mean, look, if this is something that fits the developer world, I'm not surprised. That group of individuals is usually pitched that way. They don't need to have major campaigns, right? When they see the product really works and they are willing to pay for this, and that's how probably at this stage of the company they should be operating. So I'm not surprised by that. But eventually, if you want to have a larger enterprise deals, I can see this changing a little bit.
You're gonna
As
need a
one,
sales team
yeah,
eventually. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I don't know how many people exactly they have at this point, but if you are investing in your product at that early stage, you're gonna invest a lot of money in your product. You're gonna have a lot of developers, right? Before you start bringing sales, you're probably gonna bring marketing people, um, and that's how the PLG is developed, right? So I think it's a very, I would say, classy um, go to market model that they apply to this new technology that operates in this fast-paced environment that is called AI, right?
Let's talk a little bit we talked a little bit about, like, what they do and started to get into, like, what the problem that they're solving is, but let's go a little bit deeper there. The way that I think about it is, like, companies are moving beyond just wanting to have, like, an AI copilot or AI assistant helping them. They want AI to automate many of the tasks that the people on their team do, and so with that, I think that it's interesting because, like, could you trust the people to do it, in a way that was compliant? I don't know, but now that you're handing this over to things that are autonomous, like, that becomes a big problem to figure out, okay, what are they researching? Do we trust what they're researching? Is it compliant for us to research in this matter, especially when you're talking about not just publicly available information, but private information that you have access to through, subscriptions or other ways. So I think that it's interesting. Like you see more and more of these companies coming out that are going to help people use AI, but do they have the right guardrails? And so I could actually see Tavily not just yes, being used by enterprise companies, but I wonder if there's a use case for some of these tools that are coming out to use them in the back end too to help make users buying those other AI tools feel safe about buying their tool. How do you see the problem?
The guardrails were already defined for this, in my opinion. Tavily is actually an API suite. If you think about this, it has the core offering is around the web app access APIs, right? And is designed to serve the data layer in the AI application. So if you use this API as a indicator guardrails, you know how to operate in this environment. Of course, this what they offer is much faster, much more efficient, and has to be. It's out there, right? But there's a one differentiator between the Tavily and the traditional search APIs, right? Like Google, Bing, or SERP API, which typically would return the list of URLs, right? And the short text snippets, or like you see it in Google, right? Like sometimes Tavily is designed a slightly different way because it's focusing on executing the entire data preparation workflow required for RAG in a single, right? But also the atomic call, right? So this is a very different approach to the problem that these traditional API search companies never really dealt with until the AI started to come into play.
Explain that for someone who doesn't know how search APIs work.
So I'm not an engineer, just to make full disclosure here.
You just threw out a lot of like really good words that make you sound like an engineer though.
No, I'm not an engineer. But the way I was just looking at it, so a developer is using a conventional search API will receive a list of links and then must just start doing the complex and multi-step engineering process, right? So building a web scraper, implementing a content cleaning module, to having like taking some chunks of information that he has to segment it to text and all of that, right? For a LLM, it potentially needs to also develop a ranking algorithm, right,
Mhm.
to prioritize the
Prioritization.
information, right? So if you try to do this manually, this is just horrible process, right? But I think that Tavily eliminates these 5, 6, 4, whatever distinct failure sound stages in the process, replacing with the one reliable API call, right? And that's what is the core value of that solution, right? So you have a multi-step process that is complex, clunky, time consuming. They just automated that.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Because I was
So
like,
it's
"What is he talking about?"
Yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
so the way you could just structure this is like, okay, you have a one step where you need to aggregate the information, then you need to do scraping and cleaning, and then you scoring and filtering the information that is reliable for the question that would somebody asked, right? And not exactly, but it's you can visualize this, and then structuring the output. Yeah, there you go. 4 steps you're putting into one.
Putting in a one that you can, yeah, outsource to them, and then to your point, yes, the safeguards are in place, but you do have to implement those somewhere, right? Like that, and I think that's gonna be important. That is one area that, like, we can start to talk a little bit about competitors. How good are they at doing this for various industries? Like, do they so the last episode we did was about Newton Research. I think something that was unique, at least to me, about them is, like, they're focusing on one industry and going, like, really deep in that. Do you think that Tavily has to do the same thing, or do you think they can be broad across many different industries?
I think it really is narrows down to the question of how many LLMs do you need to serve. We started to see multiple dimensions of this, right? So of course everybody's focusing on these large behemoths like OpenAI and Anthropic, right? Like these big brands, they're definitely driving the narrative today. But I think there's a ongoing parallel process for smaller LLMs or specialized LLMs that is underway. I think there's some funding traction on that front as well, and all of them will need that RAG, you know, solution. So I think that arguably there is a need for that. I also envision this whole process to be very similar to what the public and private cloud debate was back in the day when that thing was just a thing. And we ended up, a lot of private clouds being built for the companies, and they operate till now, right? So there will be a lot of companies that will have their own LLMs,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? So arguably they are already operating in the future from that perspective, and they're preparing for that, big wave of these LLMs to pop up right and left. So yeah, I think there is a space for them to operate. On the competitor, because you mentioned this, on the competitor side, you have RAG solutions that are being developed by companies like Meta, Google, and so on. It really is a question whether Tavily will just be able to compete against that and will just be better, right? If you take the market principle, they should be better at some point.
Yes. Yeah, and then you also have yeah, you have the big companies. I mean, Perplexity has also built a specialized AI search API. There's Exa AI, and they raised 17 million back in 2024, so last year, and then Firecrawler, the big ones. And then there's kind of like the more traditional AI solutions that help structure data in some fashion and like maybe do this inherently on their own, like a Hercules, an Instabase, Docket AI, Glean. Like there's all these kind of more consumer facing solutions that companies are using too. So I think it's hard for me to predict what will win out here. Do you have any guesses on, like it sounds like you think that what Tavely's building will actually win out in certain use cases.
Yeah, I think it's you have to look at it from the perspective, how the entire developer experience is changing, right? And I think that's what they really are after, right? They're saying, yeah, there's some ongoing process how developers are operating, but they're gonna operate in a different way, right? It's almost like analogy with the Amazon and how they change the way groceries can actually be delivered to your home, among many, many other things. Before you were just buying, but you were buying in the store. So I think here is something similar. There's a process, but it's going to get fundamentally changed. And if you think about what they target specifically, is that they want to be in the SDK space, the software development kits, specifically Python and JavaScript, two dominant languages in AI development, in addition to a standard REST API endpoint for other environments, right? So I think they also want to get integrated with the LangChain and Llama Index, right? So these they're kind of the I don't want to yeah, probably cornerstone of they're kind of go to market piece. They want to just partner with them, and I think
Partner-led growth, love it.
yeah, exactly. So that is connecting with what I just said earlier about being in the space around the new process, right? Because they know that the developers will use these other technologies often, right? So they think this is just a new framework that they want to be part of, and I will call this operating system, and in a vast community of AI developers, providing the functional tools and the structures for application development. That's where they want to be. That's want to be, at the core of that. So I think they taking this angle to win the market because they see that the future of development, software development, is just somewhere else where it is today.
Yeah, they wanna be in the new AI toolbox for software developers, and that's your point, like, yeah, the PGL product-led growth is working really well. They'll probably build getting integrated in many places is going to be important for that partner-led growth, and then you nailed it earlier, like marketing. Building trust, building, that brand name that developers are like, "Oh, yeah, this is what" when you have this problem, you don't use a tool that's in this category, you use Tavily, like, and getting that association there. Let's talk a little bit about the market for them. I mean, I think we've touched on it to a degree. AI agent market is fucking exploding. It's expected to be 42 billion in 2030, and right now it's 5.3 billion, which is already insane. As you already mentioned, enterprise shifts are happening where they'll probably start to build their own LLMs. They are definitely looking to automate things as much as they can. And then the last one is just that compliance first AI and making sure there's governance there. Any other market trends or double clicks on those things that you're thinking about?
I think that yeah, the sizing is important that you're calling out. I agree with you, but here's the interesting stat that I think it's fueling even further the market for developers that will need to tap into something that they couldn't do before in order to deliver meaningful AI products on behalf of the organization you're working for. So I think we are having a parallel trend on market massive proliferation of unstructured enterprise data. By the way, some people estimate this constitute over 80% of organizational data. So 80% of the organizational data on average is unstructured.
Yep. That sounds about right.
Yeah, so think about this. If you plug this in the process we described earlier, that is giving you a lot of hallucination. So you need to have a tool that will give you an ability to, mitigate the risk of that happening because your product you are about to ship to your customers will suck. So I think if you look at the solution like Tavly or Tavily, I almost use it the Greek name of the game, board game.
I've
Um,
messed it up about 15 times, so
Yes,
yep.
but I can't help like having analogies with the other stuff. I hope the guys will forgive us. I think you have some field studies that indicated that if you implement well RAG pipelines, and this can reduce the factual errors by 70 to 90%.
Oh, wow.
Right. So if you're investing on behalf of your company, that's where and you're building the AI product, or you want to be AI native, or you want to pivot into, or you want to take a part of your portfolio, that thing is not an option for you. So if you want to serve your customers, so now think about this in also context of enterprise businesses, right? They dealing with a much bigger risk because they accumulated over decades so
So
much
much
data.
data. Yep.
And if 80% of that is unstructured and they want to make a use out of it, we actually dealing with a completely different risk calculation here,
Yep. How
right?
are any of us doing business?
I don't know,
Thank God AI
sales
is
skills, I would
here.
call it
Yeah.
sales skills.
Sales and customer, support skills to make people happy when things get messed up.
So I think the market is massive here. If you try to double click on the numbers you called out, which I by the way I think are underestimated.
Oh, yeah.
So the ROI on this is very tangible, and I think I read something about the Microsoft when they were moving into this space, and they estimated that generative AI programs that incorporate these retrieval pipelines can yield a value of $3.70 for every dollar invested.
So the ROI
It's
calculation
there.
is
It's already
easily
there,
there.
right?
Yep.
And,
Yep.
of course, Microsoft is one of the companies that You can't deny they don't have enough data to do this estimation.
Yep.
So that's, I think it's a very valuable information if you are investing in this type of business, or you planning to buy the product.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's do some of, like, our debate prompts. So, I don't think we'll debate much, but who knows? You never know. Do you think this was a conviction round or a momentum race?
The initial 5 millions, it was a momentum, but I think the 20 mil that they got on top, yeah, that was not a momentum. I think they started to see that the opportunity.
Yeah, I think the double down from Alpha Wave, it was conviction. They brought in another investor, which is brings in a different skill set in the enterprise world. Also, like the incubation and having a founding team member from Alpha, like there is real belief in this team and the opportunity. What do you think this tells us about what VCs are looking for in AI investments?
I think the conviction era is over, and I think the investors becoming more wary of investing in something that might not actually materialize. I mean, there's always a long tail, right? In that trend, right? You're gonna always find some people that will throw the money. And of course, I'm not investing as much as these VCs, so they have a much better understanding. But I feel like that example, it shows me that if you were not raising money based on conviction last year, this year it might be harder because a lot of these VCs, they started to understand the business. And I think what these guys probably did very well with couple of other companies that are raising high amounts is that they were not only able to elaborate about the problem well, but I think they were able to educate the investors very well about AI and where the opportunity is. So that has a layers, right? Because venture capital might not understand all the technological advantage, right? That the new technology or product can bring. But I think once they go through the cycles and have broader conversations around that, they started realizing, okay, so now I understand where the money is, right? They're good in finding where the money is.
Yeah.
They're not good in technology, but they're good in. By the way, this is another thought I have on this. It might be that digressing from what we about to discuss here. People think that this technology thing, oh, open AI, this is the ruling will rule the world. No, finance is still ruling the world because there's a one fundamental reason why people invest. They want to earn more money. And if you invest in any of these technologies, even if you have a lot of them based on conviction, those investments are based on conviction. Eventually, the reality is catching up and people are asking, where's my money? It's the Italian mafia style. Somebody's knocking at the door and tells you, where's my money?
Yeah, I think, agreed. I think you just made a really good point. They were able to educate where the problems are. This AI is moving so fast. And as you said that, I was like, oh, this is really smart for Alpha Wave to put someone in the company because that person is going to be able to help them make other investments as they learn and are so well integrated into the company. And I wonder if you'll see, Alpha Wave isn't small, but they're not as big as Insights Partners and some of these other, Sequoia, whatever. Some of these like uh, mid-market 20 billion VCs start to do more of that. Like, how can we get the edge on this? Do we bring someone in from that space? That's one way. Do we embed someone? So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Perplexity gave me a good analogy. VCs are betting on picks and shovels rather than gold miners. So they are looking at the essential infrastructure to build AI, and they're no longer investing in individual agent applications, right? They want this to scale. They want this to be like integral to AI infrastructure in general. And you're seeing that like with the Exa AI investment, and I think we'll keep seeing that.
I agree with that. But I want to ask you a question. How you think about the AI agents settling in the world of corporate life? I mean, everybody's talking about that. Some of them already doing something, but I think we are at the very early stage where they actually are ingrained in an ongoing modus operandi of these organizations.
Yeah.
How you see this process evolving, even if you don't talk about technology in detail,
Yeah.
but the kind of psychology of the organization, how this is from this perspective.
I'll share what I want. I basically want to design my own agent, right? Like, so I don't want a company. I mean, it's great when a company that I use to like partner with built an AI agent. They do our partner listings. They now help their AI assistant, co-pilot, whatever you want to call it, helps us create and draft the initial listing. That's wonderful. Thank you. If you're not doing that as a tech platform, like you're behind. You should have tools that make your users' lives easier in your platform. But when I think about how I want to interface with it, like this is where I get really excited about MCPs and the tools
Mhm.
there because I basically want to pick the LLM that I like the most and turn on the tools to get the relevant data that is relevant to my role in my company, whether that's external company data, internal data, into the tool to make decisions. And then I want to actually probably have a couple of those setups because sometimes I put on a sales cap, sometimes I put on a marketing cap, sometimes I put on a engineering cap. And so that I'm going to want different tools that are relevant to that use case. And that's kind of like in terms of AI agents, I think that like there will be other LLMs, large companies, companies bigger than what I work on will develop their own, which is smart because then you're not worried about your data getting leaked out into whatever or being trained elsewhere. But ultimately, like there's gonna have to be a lot of niche use cases and personalized use cases of these LLMs. So that's kind of where my mind goes when I think about these agents. What are your thoughts on it?
No, no, I think you bring a very good point, very good points. I'm trying to connect the AI agents into what Tavily is actually.
I think they're a piece of that.
Yes, exactly, because I think, if I think about the AI agents, right? So I'm thinking about them as a autonomous or semi-autonomous systems that are very capable in performing complex tasks, right? Multi-step tasks on behalf of us, right, as the users, right? So that's what you were referring to. That okay, this is what what I want, right? So there will be a lot of people that will say, "This is what I want." So that is a massive market if you think about this, because there's a lot of people who will do it. What these agents will be fundamentally dependent on is continuous stream of high quality, real time, contextual, relevant, and precise data in the environment so that their actions are executed effectively. Because otherwise, Lizzie won't buy that agent anymore.
Nope.
They have a bigger fish to fry on this market, in my opinion, than only what they do right now. Because if today I can go to Best Buy and buy any device and I can run a model on them because the capabilities are growing, right? And the new chips are, we're going to get more and more and better, right? That is coming. That's already happening. Everybody's talking about Nvidia and how this is going to change, but there's a long tail of other companies that are
Oh,
adjusting
yeah.
as well, and this is going to just be shipped on the market. So if any of these device will be able to run with the model, even simple one, and connect to the agent, that is a massive, massive market, right? And they need to be autonomous in the way that also is making this safe. So the accuracy and compliance will be a critical selling point for them. So if you take in the 80% of the unstructured data and you can get this, mitigate the risk, you're just getting 70 to 90% fluff is out, that's huge for any of these devices.
Oh, yeah.
So in
Well,
my opinion, the
and
market is much, much bigger. And I think this is underestimated number as of now.
yeah, and those, of LLM sitting on top of a bunch of agents, and you can just ask the LLM which agents are doing a good job and which ones aren't, right? So, like, it is in the past when you had a bunch of tools and you're doing tasks for you, or you found different ways to do it, like, it's hard to evaluate that without some deep analysis, like, you were sitting on things that will just do it for you now, and let you know, so it's ever evolving and growing very rapidly.
Big time. Big time. How you think about the competitors for Tavily?
I think there's room in the market for multiple solutions here. Like, I think they will hone on in on a few different things. We talked about, like, some of the bigger companies, like, Perplexity building specialized search APIs. You're gonna keep seeing that, like, Google is not gonna let go of search anytime soon, so you're gonna see more and more of these tools coming out. But I think it just becomes, like, what's the specific use case for it, and where are they executing it? So Tavily is, like, really focused on that developer toolkit. Google's gonna probably make you operate in their system, right? And some of these bigger companies might do the same, and so I don't know if all the enterprise companies will wanna operate in Google's system. Maybe they're okay with it, maybe they aren't, depending on their business, like, certain companies will not be okay with that. So, I think that there are competitors that will do well, like, and will keep getting investment here because it's gonna be a really important piece of the pie. It will also depend on how well they do compliance in different industries. If they're able to do that compliance everywhere, like, great, but there might be some specialized niche use cases of, like, a specialized AI search or specialized search APIs that are focused on I gave that legal example, but, like, a very niche use case within legal and laws that are not as well understood as something like GDPR. So, we'll see what that looks like. What are your thoughts? Any other competitor thoughts?
No, no, I think you nail it on the larger part. I think it's they operate already with the large install base of the customers that they offer the cloud services, so it's really hard to get out of it
Yeah.
if you're a Fortune 500 company. So, and I know that Google invested heavily in that space, the cloud business. So I think there will be a space for them to operate with their own RAG engine. So Google, Microsoft Azure, right, and AWS, they'll have their own version, and I think they will evolve to be more and more flexible. But I think Google today is offering the most flexible version of it. That's my take. I think that the balance between the ease of use, the deep customization, right? And integrates with a wide area of different things like Google Cloud Storage, Drive, Slack, Jira, right? Vector databases, Pinecone, Weave8 and Llama Cloud, all of these things they just do, right? So they'll be there. And the similar cases with Azure and AWS, they have their own angle for the customers. So I think that competition is going away. By the way, I know that Google is not taking the all spotlight right now, but I think among all these large companies, Google is still doing very, very well,
The
and I
best,
believe in
yeah.
them more. Now, there's something to say about the more head-to-head analysis on the startup front. There's a solution called XIAI. The key rivalry between the two leading these solutions, right? Tavily and Exa. The Exa is emphasizing more semantic depth in the kind of fine-grained developer control, leveraging their own proprietary search index, and it's positioned for complex, research-heavy tasks where multi-hop reasoning is required. So that's kind of their own thing, but Tavily focuses on the speed and integration structure defaults and concise outputs, which I think is getting them a little bit ahead. I think there's more people that they will value more speed and agility versus deep and depth of what they do because most of these tools they provide something that has to be done fast and quick. I think that's the angle. There's one another startup that is very popular, and I know you're a big fan of Perplexity. Of course, Perplexity is known for these kind of consumer facing solution, but I think they have an API that
Mm.
offers powerful search grounding, capabilities.
Sonar,
Yes.
yeah.
And it has, it's faced some criticism regarding the reliability and frequent downtime, but I think it's working, right? And I think they also they are very popular brand at this point, right? Especially when you're bidding for Google's browser. So, but I think Tavily has a different angle, and it's just more working on the foundational infrastructure, and it wants to be in more kind of ground build up mode. So I think they're gonna have angle here. And the last one I would call it out is the Brave Search API. And the primary differentiator between these is depending the Brave is independent web index is building on autonomous data from its browser users. So this offers a valuable alternative to the Google, Bing, and duopoly. Or I would argue that probably Google is still the biggest in
Google.
here, and comes with a strong privacy centric brand. But I think that the primarily the Brave is serving more of the SERPs engine. That's what they're gonna stay, right? So Tavily is more on the kind of RAG value proposition, which I think it's picking up and eventually will dominate. So I think they're very well positioned against these two buckets of different competitors.
Do you know how Brave started? It was to have, like, an ad blocker on your browser so you didn't get served ads, so I have mixed feelings about Brave. I'm happy they're doing well. Uh,
Yeah,
the
I
one
mean,
thing
I
Go
know
ahead.
people using the browser
Well,
a lot.
yeah, ads are annoying, but also it pays for content. And that is one thing that I think Perplexity has potentially going for them is that they have other ways to make money. They have monetization structures that they can go and sell ads and will have to eventually. Although in conversations this week at Ad Week, I heard many people in the space saying that they don't think Perplexity will be a company in a year. So who knows? Who knows what will happen? Do you think Tavily will scale or fail?
I think definitely will scale.
How
Um,
much though?
oh, I think it will grow very fast. I think will grow very fast. But they have to overcome their weaknesses, and they have to get these weaknesses, in check, and double down on the strengths. I mean, that's probably a recipe for a lot of companies, and they need to ensure that they double down on the opportunities that are in the front of them because the competition is fierce. There's certain threats to their approach as well. So if I start from the top, the strength is there's definitely the demonstrated product market fit that is there, and you know that the future is something they consider and they want to be part of it. That's definitely a strength because there's a clear vision. I think they have a good investors, helps, like you said, and you mentioned, you called this out, right? Like there's a person that is part of the founding team that knows how to get money and explain this to the investors. I think they also have a little bit of advantage to be pioneer in the space. I don't want to
Mm.
say this is a huge strength, but it's definitely adding to the position. And they are getting into the developer ecosystem. This is a double edged sword because I can tell you this. Probably a lot of people that are listening to us, they think in the same way, they know it. Developer environment, developers are in general for decades they were spoiled by the industry because it was offering a lot of freebies. Converting them to premium, it's always a problem. But I think with this AI environment and race to keep the job, I think they might need to take a decision much faster, right? So I think it's over. So being there and being connected to
Mm.
these other applications like LangChain and the Llama Index, I think this is these frameworks. This helps them a lot. On the
Yeah.
weakness, they need to overcome the infrastructure dependency, high operational cost, and nascent market dependency. Right. So they need to somehow stimulate the AI agent growth and this idea that they can just help to build this. And if I look at the opportunities, they have expansion into the enterprise grade features, right? That's what we talked about. Internal knowledge search, the major growth vector is around this is the extended platform capabilities. There's a lot of things that you can just build around this for the company itself and the enterprise space. And deeper LLM provider partnerships. That's your department, so you know how that goes. They need to work with Anthropic, OpenAI, Cohere, like there's just plenty of them, and
Yep.
that's
More
gonna be
coming.
yep. And the last thing I'll mention on the strategic like threats, it's a hyperscaler bundling, right? The most significant threats in strategy is going to be like AWS, Google, and Microsoft. If they can get ahead of them and associate with someone that is pioneering and these larger companies following them, that's going to be a massive thing. But of course, they have resources, right? So you got to be really smart about that. Commoditization of the rag, as always. Anything that is commoditized doesn't have a margin, so you might become a utility at some point. So the faster you actually can acquire, convert, will bring more margin, and then you can expand. So that's with the fast-paced environment that we're facing right now, that's a key problem for a lot of them, a lot of these infrastructure-based solutions. Yeah, I think the AI development on its own is also a threat. So if something bad happens on the market and AI is involved, and that bubble for some reason is bursting, they're gonna get a ricochet, right? So that can just inhibit their growth. Yeah, these are my thoughts. What are you thinking?
I think it will scale. I think the biggest I mean, I think you mentioned a lot of it, like, they have that good mix of someone that can go raise money, someone that knows enterprise, and someone that's a tech nerd, has the technical expertise on their founding team, good investors behind them that are very committed to them doing well. The commoditization is the piece that, it will scale light, but I do think, like, as you're talking about Exa, I'm like XAI, I'm like, well, should they just merge? Because then you get rid of your biggest competitor and then round out your capabilities and what you're good at. I think it'll be like a kind of a quick exit. Or if I was on this team, that's what I would want. I want a little bit of a quick exit. Either one of those large companies, Azure, AWS, or Google, are like, well, fuck it. This company is outpacing us. Let's just go buy
Yep.
them and bring this to market.
Yep.
Or a company that is isn't necessarily doing that, but wants that technology, another large enterprise that is not as ingrained in that space. So yeah, I think that's like I would want a quick exit from this before it gets commoditized. Because I think in 3 years, like this is just kind of going to be table stakes things that's available. But I think that quick exit is available. What are your thoughts on exit?
Yeah, I don't think it's an IPO company. Sorry, guys. At this point, I don't think you are a candidate. I mean, it's too early for a lot of companies to at that stage to be called an IPO, unless you call the OpenAI. I also see this more through the kind of M&A exit at this point. I tiered their opportunities in kind of three buckets. So the first one where I see the opportunities, Databricks and Snowflake, they definitely have a huge ambition. Their enterprise data, data analytics, their AI, right? That's the big piece of their offering. So acquiring Tavily would instantly provide them with a best in class production already solution, and they can just plug and play.
Yep,
So
agreed.
so another one in this bucket is also the Elastic. We're forgetting about this company. And I think Elastic could acquire Tavily just to further consolidate its market leadership and eliminate some key competitor in that space, right? So bringing more of the developer community into this and kind of helping to build the agent centric technologies. That's where they could just benefit a lot from these synergies. And then there's a tier two where I think about the Cohere, Anthropic, and Nvidia. All of them just definitely could benefit from having them in their own pocket and sell or embed, like in Nvidia's case, right? Since they have AI chips,
Yeah.
when it's on the plane, why not? And then the last one is, of course, the typical suspects like, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle, and IBM, with a kind of similar complementary interests to bring them in. The Google, Microsoft, and Amazon is probably less of that, but I think Oracle and IBM, if they want to, bring back their shares and their ability to execute better in the new space, yeah, they might just make the decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you need to apologize to them for not being an IPO company. I think they'll exit well, and they have plenty of potential buyers, so
Yes.
and who knows how much more funding they'll even need to get there. They might from an infrastructure perspective, but they might have that set up really well. So, yeah, I think I wanna follow along and see what happens with them and Exa and even some of the bigger products like
Yep.
Sonar and whatnot. It's an interesting niche, interesting space of AI. Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
I think they definitely are to scale. They are community strong. They have a strong community developer first focus, early market leadership, create the more defensible mode, but it won't last forever. I know I'm talking cliche here, but they need to hustle and help the others to build the AI agents because that's going to drive massive growth on their end. They need to be wary of the massive hyperscalers that are moving the same space and already have environment and customers to test it with. So they need to ensure that the quality and pioneering that space continues.
Yeah, that's a excellent point. I love ending on a community and partnerships. No, 2 of their co-founders are one's a professor, one, has created some of these communities, right? So I think they're
Yep.
actually well positioned to go and do this well and help bring those agents to
Yes.
market through their networks, which is a great point to end on. Well, thank you for joining this episode of Market Genius AI. Will it scale or will it fail? We are going to have a fail on this at some point. We'll see when that comes. If there's any companies that you want us to cover, please let us know in the comments.
Thank
Good
you.
chat, Demetrius.
Thanks, Lizzie.